Well, we're back here in our, let's see, a makeshift confessional here that we've created for all of the winemakers. I'm here with Jeff Pipestone. And Jeff, I've just been asking several winemakers just their kind of view on cooperage for Zinfandel here at Zinfandel Weekend. What is your preferred cooperage, and what do you think about American oak as opposed to whatever oak that you may use?
I guess as opposed to French, or I guess now Hungarian or Russian.
Exactly.
But actually, for the most part, I'm more of a fan of lighter oaked Zinfandels. If I can taste the oak in the Zinfandel, I don't generally like it, and it's really because my particular style is to make the wine very spicy and peppery with a lot of fruit, but trying to bring out the really natural flavors of the Zinfandel as opposed to covering them up with oak.
Yeah.
In general, though, however, I do use American oak because the Zinfandels in the Templeton Gap, where I am, are very typically spicy and peppery already. French oak also has this spice and pepper to it, but it's a different spice and pepper, and it actually, to me, it conflicts with the Zinfandel. The American oak, however, adds some richness, some vanilla flavors into it, and I think really adds to the character and the depth of the wine.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I think about American oak and Zin, I think Zin. I think that it has that affinity for it. And I think that those big flavors that the Zin does come with plays really well with it, especially here in Paso Robles. But can you talk a little bit about just the versatility of the grape? I mean, it could be made in several different styles.
Well, I mean, Zin's been the workhorse grape since the Gold Rush times. People make everything from a white Zinfandel, which, by the way, is pink. It's a rosé, but they make everything from that through a still wine, a spicy, peppery, lighter-bodied wine like mine, to the very heavy, extracted, sort of raisiny, alcoholic style, and of course they make Zinfandel port.
Yeah.
So I can't think of another grape that even comes close to having that range.
Yeah. And so for everybody out there also, I know I get this question a lot, what are your favorite kind of classic pairings for Zinfandel?
Well, barbecued ribs probably. I quit eating meat last summer, so I probably can't say that. But I like spicy southern-style barbecued ribs where it's almost painful to eat them. Of course, quenching that burn with Zinfandel is dangerous because the alcohol on the Zins in the last 15 years has come up. So on the third glass, it gives you a headache and probably creates a bail situation. But otherwise, So things are spicy. Things that have good, strong tomato acidity are always good with Zinfandel. The not my style, but the other style that's a little bit more extracted and sweeter really is good just by itself. And I think a lot of people are using it as an aperitif before dinner, and then maybe going with something else for the actual food pairing.
Yeah. Great. And then is there anything that, as far as standouts, vineyard-wise, or just kind of you've ever had here in Paso that really kind of you draw other than your wine, of course?
Of course, my wine. But I think the great thing about Paso is that we can get this grape very, very ripe. We can make some big alcohol, very big wines, but the alcohol doesn't stand out. The fruit's still there, and sort of area wide, we can make great Zins.
Yeah, I agree.
The key. Yeah, I mean, much better, I think, than the North Coast where they have to really watch the alcohol. Mm-hmm. Here we can really let the grape run wild and do its thing that it wants to do.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing about the Paso Robles area, I think, is that we have such a wide ripening window, which is really, really nice for the grapes.
Right. Because we have such a long growing season, Zinfandel, on the same cluster, often you'll see pink berries, so unripe berries, you'll see nicely ripe berries, and then you'll see raisins, all in the same cluster. If you have to pick that when there are still those pink or green berries, green flavors are green flavors, and those come through. In Paso, we can often wait until October to pick. We almost never have rain during the harvest period, and so everything gets ripe, and it really makes a luscious wine.
Kidnapped three gentlemen here. They just got done doing the dry farming seminar in the isosceles room. So we have David from Minnasian-Young, Robert from Nadeau Family Vineyards, and to my left here, Adelaida, Terry from Adelaida Cellars. So, guys, I just wanted to bring you guys in here. Thank you for coming in, and have you guys just quickly chat about Zin and kind of your thoughts on Zin. You can talk about cooperage, variety. You can do a little bit about the dry farming experience that you just gave the lucky people. So,
okay. We have a 18-acre head prune dry farm vineyard at Adelaida. It's called Michael's Vineyards, named after our vineyard manager. And fun thing about that vineyard is we went around and we took clippings from two of our favorite old vine vineyards back about 11 years ago, And so one of them was the old Martinelli Vineyard on the west side of Paso Robles. It's probably about 90 years old now. And the other was the Clevenger Vineyard, which indirectly came from the Uberhoff Vineyard, which is over 100 years old. And so we propagated that on St. George rootstock and put it in the ground about 11 years ago, and it's been really doing well for us. Nice. So that's all our Zin. It's estate Zin only, and that's what we make. So we're really happy with it. It's a dry farm, 12 by 12 spacing, very traditional. And we're also putting in a couple new little vineyards. 6-acre block next year of dry farmed, mixture of Alicante Boucher and Zin, field plantings, so interspaced, 80% Zin, 20% Alicante. Wow. So that's going to be really exciting.
That's cool. Awesome. Robert?
Thank you. Just getting out of the dry farming, head pruning, Zinfandel seminar we just did. Oddly enough, the takeout that I always have, or takeaway that I have from that discussion is that I don't know why fruit that's grown in head pruned vineyards makes superior wine. I just know that the trend is that way. I've been making wine in the area for 25 years. I've been making Zinfandel. I made hundreds of different lots of Zinfandel in that time. And it's not universal, but it's so close to universal that when we went to plant our vineyard, we went ahead and put it dry farmed, head pruned Zinfandel. It was from Benito Ducey's vineyard on 1103 Paulson rootstock. We have high pH, very calciferous, calcareous, high, shale soils. So we chose a rootstock that would do well in that environment. Relatively vigorous rootstock, which is good considering we're not irrigating it or fertilizing it. So we've had tremendous success with the vineyard, and I couldn't imagine doing it any other way, frankly. So that's our story with Dry Farm Zinfandel. We put our money where our mouths were, and we've had pretty good luck with it. And David has too.
Definitely, and I think the fun thing with the three of us is that we all share a fence line. All three of our vineyards are right next to each other. And I think there's a certain commonality when you taste all of our wines. There's a certain terroir that kind of seems to override, our individual styles, and you kind of get this certain this cassis kind of almost like cherry cola sense that kind of comes through just beyond what any of us are individually doing, and it's what's happening in that vineyard. I think dry farm fruit is it's the most fun to work with because it changes every year, and you can let it do what it's going to do, and it's not so much of you as a winemaker trying to make an individual statement. That vineyard and that place is going to make such a strong statement, and it's our favorite fruit to work with. We're fortunate enough to work with several dry farmers. I think all of us are kind of all in that same neighborhood, and we all get to play with the same fruit. Every year is different. Every year is its own challenge, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah. Challenging indeed.
Yeah,
definitely. Cool. And just real quick, I know that we've had a lot of talk about destemming and not destemming, whole cluster. There seems to be a lot of that kind of talk the last few years. Is that something that comes into play? Because I know that the bunches are hues, or sometimes there's raisins on them. Sometimes there's green ones. What exactly, is there anything that goes into that special or different for the Zim grape?
We just destem normally, put it on a belt conveyor, and try to sort out anything that looks too raisined. But other than that, it's the luck of the draw, I guess. We have a really good crew that picks. It's our permanent crew, so we get really nice fruit in the bins to start with, and that's key, sort of the triage right there, rather than bringing it into the vineyard. When you purchase fruit, sometimes you're not always as lucky.
Something else too, there's a lot of equipment that's come on the market that auto sorts fruit, and that works fine with firm berry cluster varieties, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, to a lesser extent Syrah. But Zinfandel is a very soft berry, and so you wind up where these machines, they can't sort Zinfandel fruit. So no matter how much you'd like to use some of these new, Mistral or whatever, they just don't do a good job with it. Something else too is using whole berry or whole cluster. That's an interesting tool with a more fruit-driven, particularly if you're looking for a lighter style of Zinfandel. You get that carbonic maceration phenomenon, which Terry's familiar with from being a longtime Pinot Noir man. But you can certainly lend to a lighter Zinfandel, or stylistically something you're trying to achieve as a lighter style of Zinfandel. You can get some very interesting, almost candy-like aromatics and whatnot that make the wine very interesting. Any thoughts?
Oh yeah. Zinfandel, I mean, it's the number 2 red varietal in the state, but it's still it's a complete outlier. They don't make machines for Zinfandel like they do for anything else. It's head prune dry farm Zinfandel is like no other type of viticulture. It's like no other type of winemaking out there. It's incredibly labor and hand dependent. I mean, you do rely completely on crews to pre-sort, harvest, because you'll have such mixed maturation in the vineyard to kind of harvest what's ripe and what's not ripe. And then you're going to go on to pre-sorting before the crusher and then post-sorting. And you do want raisins. You don't want so many raisins. It's a million different choices. I think Westside Dry Farm Zinfandel making is like nothing that they ever will train you for anywhere else. And it's the only thing that you can get from, just years of doing it.